a small village in upstate New York. I'll tell you a couple because many, many lovable and hilarious things have happened here. I've been in a hardware store since I was 13 years old. I started sweeping the floor for 20 cents an hour and worked for a wonderful man who bought hides and furs as well as sold hardware and held farm mortgages. It was a lesson that young people at that age never forget. But having given you all of my credentials that I have, I've been here 74 years associated with the hardware business. I've been 55 years associated, not associated, owning, and I own the hardware too, but owning a real estate business. Now, a real estate business in a small town can be anything from, selling a saw log to a hay lot to a beautiful home or whatever. And it's all fun most of the time. Sometimes it gets a little hacky, but you try to let that go over your head. I'll tell you first about a fellow that I was very fond of that lived across the street on a 3-story apartment. He wasn't too far up the ladder as far as the social scale is concerned. Carried his own habits, not all of them good, but he was an excellent carpenter and a cabinet maker. His name should remain anonymous because he still lives in the community. But he lived in this 3-story building up over business blocks. He wasn't supposed to have anything of consequence in that apartment. However, he did eventually get a goat up there, which he was very, very fond of. He also had a big red rooster, and every morning he would open that window in the third floor, put out, well, it was actually a stair handrail about 16 foot long that went from his window out to the power pole. And he'd put the rooster out there. Well, about 4 o'clock in the morning, this rooster would start crowing in downtown Camden, a village of 3,000, 3,500 people for all purposes. It was hilarious to me, but it wasn't hilarious to the people who lived in the apartments or people that lived close proximity to them. But I thought that was one of the funniest things. And one morning I was standing at my front door of the office, and a gentleman who I know very well walked by, and he says, "Tom, what are you laughing about?" I said, "That rooster." "Yeah, you idiot." He said, "You ought to be laughing at Rooster." He said, "I've listened to him since 3 o'clock this morning, and I don't see any humor in it." And so that's my story about the rooster on Main Street, Camden, New York, and I love it dearly. Second story that I've got to tell you is when the bank was robbed. Now, our hardware store is immediately adjacent to the bank, and my real estate office is immediately adjacent to the hardware store. So all of a sudden, all the alarms in the world went off, and the bank was being robbed. Truly was being robbed. This fellow was from out of town. They caught him in Arizona, but he pulled off the bank robbery. Not a soul was hurt. But you talk about confusion lending itself to humor is unbelievable. We had sheriffs, we had state police, we had a sheriff do a U-turn right in front of my office and come over the curb and knock the parking meter down. The local chief of police was beside himself. One of my favorite people, who has since died, Ronnie Bumpus, was with me, and Bump was admitting that he had done it. He was that type of a character. And I said, "Bump, you better shut up or they'll have you apprehended here pretty soon." But if you could have seen the panic, the hysteria, the there had to be, if there was one, there was Doc, come here, careful, Jack. There had to be a dozen police cars in the area, and people running and shouting. And of course, the guy was on foot that robbed the bank, and he wandered off down south on Main Street and got in back of the stores or someplace. They never did find him, and it was actually relatives here in the town that suspected that it was him, and they did. They picked him up later in Arizona. Nobody harmed, nobody hurt. Who cares about bank money? They got insurance or Federal Reserve or whatever. So it was just a hilarious, eventful day in Camden, New York. And any of you that may elect to live here, it's just an absolute great place to live. It's the Queen Village of Oneida County, which denotes its beautifulness, its orderliness, its typical New England village. And the greatest people in the world live here. The kindest and most generous people in the world live here in Camden, New York. And I'm proud to be a small part of it. So that's my second funny story. I guess I'll tell you a third, then you can edit anything out that you want. We had a character here in town that was in the general contracting business. And we used to have a drive through at the rear end of our hardware store. It was narrow. And this guy would get into the toddies every once in a while, but he had 2x4s loaded in his car. But they were long for his car, so they stuck out each side window. Well, he come down through the alley, kind of immune to any thoughts of carefulness. And he was going pretty fast, and he went through that narrow alley, but the 2x4 stuck out wider than the alley was. It broke them 2x4s in about 20 pieces, knocked him in the back of the head. He swerved off to his left and hit an old horse barn that was out back, and got out of the car. I won't repeat what he said, but yeah, most people call me Plum. He said, "Wow, Plum, that's a narrow hole to get through." Little 16-inch pieces or 2-foot pieces of 2x4 broken to a million pieces. Part of him inside his car, part of him out. He hit hard. He was hit hard, back of his head, and I suppose it might not have been funny to some people, but knowing the guy, knowing his personalities, knowing his habits, made it very, very funny. I could go on telling Camden stories for absolutely ever because I've lived here my entire life. I built 186, 187 houses where I'm in dispute with my building superintendent, who was with me 42 years. But we built those houses, we built post offices, we rehabbed. I can't tell you how many old Victorians in this town, as well as doing a substantial amount of work for the banking industry. So Camden's near and dear to me. I could have traveled the world. Oh, well, I did in the 1950s during the hot years of the Korean conflict. I have no war stories to tell you. I had kind of an easy trip, but I was there. And I just love this place and I love the people. And if you should elect to live in this area, you'll grow to love it too. Thank you.
Very nice.